Ethan opened his eyes slowly, his vision blurry and his head pounding. The air around him felt heavy yet strange, carrying a faint metallic smell. He tried to move, but his arms felt stiff, cold metal restraints holding him down. His breathing quickened. This wasn't his ship. The walls around him were smooth and glowing faintly with blue light. The ceiling hummed with a soft vibration that didn't sound human-made. A low fear crept into his chest. Where am I? He thought his last memory was the battle in space, the alarms, the blinding flash. And then nothing. A shadow moved over him. Ethan froze, blinking rapidly to clear his vision. That's when he saw her. She wasn't human. Her skin had a soft, silver glow, like moonlight over water. Her hair floated slightly as if gravity itself was weaker around her. But it was her eyes that held him still, large and glowing with a deep blue light. Filled with curiosity instead of fear, the alien girl leaned closer, her delicate fingers hovering over his face before gently touching his cheek. Ethan flinched at the cold yet soft contact. Her lips moved, whispering words in a language he didn't understand. It sounded musical, almost like a song. W.A. Who are you? Ethan stammered, his voice dry and weak. The girl tilted her head, her glowing eyes studying his mouth as if learning the shape of his words. She opened her own mouth and spoke in broken English, the words heavy with an accent. You. Not from here. Ethan's heart raced. He tried to sit up, the restraints clinking as he struggled. Where am I? He demanded, panic rising in his chest. She didn't answer. Instead, she placed her hand over his chest as if calming him. Her touch was cool, and somehow it slowed his breathing. Her expression softened, almost like pity. Suddenly, the room shook violently. The walls vibrated, and a loud alarm echoed through the corridor outside. Red light flashed over the blue glow. The girl's calm expression vanished, replaced with fear. The door to the room slid open with a hiss. Shadows moved, tall figures in dark armor with weapons raised. They shouted in the same alien language, their voices sharp and commanding. Ethan's survival instincts kicked in. He pulled against the restraints. Desperate to break free, the alien girl turned to him, her glowing eyes now filled with urgency. She touched a small panel on the side of his bed, and the restraints hissed open. His arms were free, numb and weak, but free. Come, she said, quickly, her broken English trembling. If you want, live. Come now. She grabbed his hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Ethan stumbled as she pulled him off the bed. His legs felt heavy, his body still recovering from whatever had happened to him. The armored figures shouted again, their weapons glowing as they aimed. The girl raised her free hand and the lights in the room flickered violently. A surge of energy pushed through the air, knocking the soldiers back for a second. Ethan didn't understand how, but he knew they had to run. The girl dragged him through the door into a narrow corridor. The walls glowed faintly, humming under their feet as they ran. The gravity felt off, every step slightly lighter, almost dreamlike. Who are you? Ethan gasped as they turned a corner. His voice echoed off the metallic walls. The girl glanced back at him, her silver hair flowing behind her. Lyra, she said simply. Her name sounded soft, almost human. The corridor shook again. A loud roar of engines or maybe weapons echoed in the distance. Ethan's mind raced. Where am I? What is this place? Why is she helping me? They burst into a larger chamber filled with strange glowing panels and floating platforms. Ethan skidded to a stop, staring at the alien technology in awe. It was nothing like anything he had seen before. Not even in the human fleet's most advanced ships. Lyra pulled him toward one of the platforms. It looked like a pod, small and round, hovering just above the ground. What's happening? Ethan demanded. Why are they after me? Lyra's glowing eyes locked onto his. Her voice was calm but heavy. You. Not safe here. Human not safe here. The sound of footsteps pounded behind them. The armored soldiers appeared at the entrance, weapons ready. Lyra pushed Ethan into the pod and jumped in after him. Her fingers moved quickly over strange symbols glowing on the control panel. The pod hummed and the walls around them shifted as if sealing. One of the soldiers shouted, a deep voice echoing through the chamber. Lyra froze for half a second, her face filled with something Ethan couldn't read, fear or sadness. The pod jolted violently as it launched forward. The corridor outside blurred into streaks of light as the pod shot away at incredible speed. Ethan gripped the sides, his heart pounding. He looked at Lyra, who held a small glowing device close to her chest. Her blue eyes met his, and she whispered one chilling sentence. They will kill us both. If they find you. The pod shot into the unknown, and Ethan realized his life had just changed forever. The pod shook violently as it shot through the metallic tunnels. The sound of alarms faded behind them, replaced by the deep hum of the engine. Ethan clung to the seat, his knuckles white. Lyra's silver fingers danced over the strange glowing controls. Her face was calm, but her glowing blue eyes kept flicking to the radar in front of her. Each time, her expression tightened. Where are we going? Ethan shouted over the hum. Lyra didn't answer at first. Her lips moved, speaking in her own language, the words fast and urgent. Finally, she looked at him and spoke in her broken English. Out of their hands, Ethan tried to breathe. His body still ached, his mind spinning. Who were they? What do they want with me? Lyra's fingers stopped for a second. She looked at him, her glowing eyes unreadable. You not belong here. They want you dead. Ethan felt a cold weight in his stomach. Why? I don't even know where here is. The pod suddenly lurched to the side, throwing him against the wall. Lyra hissed something in her language, her silver hair floating in the low gravity. On the radar, small red dots were closing in. Ethan recognized the pattern even without understanding the tech. They were being chased. Are those ships? He asked. Lyra nodded once. Her fingers moved quickly over the panel, and the pod dipped down into a wide tunnel that opened into a vast, dark space. Ethan's breath caught. They were no longer in a building. They were flying into open sky, or what looked like sky, but the stars didn't look like any he had seen before. Some were faint green, others pulsed like living things. Where are we? He whispered. Lyra glanced at him. Her voice was softer this time. Not your world. Ethan leaned back, his heart pounding. He looked at her, this strange, beautiful alien girl who had risked everything to save him. Why are you helping? Emmy? For a moment, Lyra didn't answer. Her blue eyes stared straight ahead as if weighing something. Finally, she placed her hand over the small glowing device she carried. Because you are key, she said quietly, her broken English made the words sound heavier. Ethan frowned. Key? Key to what? Before she could answer, the pod jolted again. A blinding beam of light shot past them, grazing the hull. The sound was deafening, even inside the pod. Ethan grabbed the seat. They're shooting at us. Lyra's calm face didn't break her. Hands moved with precision as the pod spun sharply to the right. Dodging another blast, the stars outside turned into streaks of light. Hold, she said firmly. Ethan swallowed hard, gripping the edges of the seat. What does that mean? Lyra slammed her hand down on a glowing symbol. The pod made a deep, rising hum that shook through Ethan's chest. A blue field spread over the pod like liquid light. Suddenly, everything went quiet. The chasing ships vanished from the radar. The sound of pursuit faded into silence. Ethan looked around, confused. What did you do? Lyra leaned back, her breath heavy now. Hide. But cost much. Ethan looked at her and realized she was pale, well, paler than before. Her silver skin seemed dimmer. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the glowing device tighter. Are you okay? He asked. She nodded weakly. Cloak takes life. Ethan's stomach dropped. He didn't understand how, but he could see she had drained herself to save them. He reached out, touching her shoulder gently. Hey, stay with me. Lyra opened her glowing eyes. They were softer now, less guarded. She looked at him as if seeing him for the first time. You Human, she whispered, as if the word itself was important. Yeah, Ethan said softly. And you saved me. I owe you. Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile, but her eyes were heavy. Her hands slid off the control panel as she leaned back, exhausted. Ethan looked at the radar. The red dots were gone. But they weren't safe. He could feel it. The pod floated in the strange starry void, surrounded by colors and lights unlike anything he had seen before. He turned to the control panel. Hundreds of symbols glowing, his hands hovered over them. He didn't know what he was doing, but he knew they couldn't stay here. All right. Let's figure this out, he muttered, mostly to himself. Then a shadow fell over the pod. Ethan froze, his heart skipped a beat. Slowly, he turned his head toward the window. A massive dark shape blocked out the strange stars, stretching wider and wider until it felt like the entire void was covered. A deep vibration hummed through the pod, heavier than before. Ethan didn't need to understand alien tech to know what it was. Someone had found them. He looked at Lyra, who opened her tired, glowing eyes just enough to see the shadow. Her lips moved in her language, a whisper like prayer. Then in broken English, she said two words that made Ethan's blood run cold. Mothership. Enemy, asterisk. The pod shook as if a giant hand had grabbed it. The lights flickered, and the hum of the engine turned into a low, warning tone. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the shadow outside swallowed everything. He turned to Lyra. What do we do? He whispered. Her glowing blue eyes were still dim, her silver skin pale from exhaustion. But her hands slowly moved to the small cube she had been holding tight since the escape. It pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. They want this, she said, her voice quiet but steady. Ethan looked at the cube. What is it? Lyra glanced at him, her eyes serious. Secret. Life of worlds. Before Ethan could ask more, the pod jolted sharply. The blue cloak around them flickered and then shattered like glass. A blinding beam of white light flooded the pod as they were pulled toward the massive ship. Ethan grabbed the sides of his seat. They've got us. Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she pressed the cube into his hands. Her fingers curled over his, forcing him to hold it tight. Human, she said, her voice trembling but firm. Only you can open. Ethan stared at her in shock. Me? Why? Me? I don't even know what this thing is. Lyra leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Because it knows you. The pod stopped with a violent jerk. The lights dimmed, and the hum of the engine died completely. Outside, a massive metallic wall filled the window. The pod had been dragged into the belly of the mothership. Ethan's heart pounded. What now? Lyra's glowing eyes met his, and for the first time he saw fear there. Now. We pray. The door hissed open. Cold air rushed in, and heavy footsteps echoed. Ethan squinted as tall, armored figures stepped into view. Their armor gleamed under the white light, their faces hidden behind dark helmets. One of them barked a bark command in the alien language. The sound was harsh, sharp. Ethan didn't need to understand the words to know it was an order. Lyra stood slowly, her legs shaky. She held her hands up to show she wasn't armed. She looked back at Ethan and whispered, "Stay close." Ethan followed her out of the pod. Clutching the cube against his chest, the hangar was massive, filled with strange machines and rows of alien soldiers. All of them turned to look at him, the human. His stomach tightened under their cold stares. They were led down a long metallic corridor. The walls glowed faintly, humming with the same energy he'd felt since waking up. The air was thicker here, heavier. Where are they taking us? Ethan whispered. Lyra didn't answer, but her grip on his arm tightened just slightly. Finally, they entered a huge circular chamber. At the center stood a towering figure in black armor. The air itself seemed to bend around him. His helmet shifted. As he turned toward Ethan, the other soldiers bowed their heads slightly. The towering figure stepped forward. His voice was deep, resonating through the chamber, even though Ethan couldn't understand the words. It wasn't a shout, but it carried power. Lyra stepped in front of Ethan. Speaking quickly in her language, her tone was sharp, almost desperate. The armored figure tilted his head, then slowly turned his gaze to Ethan, even through the helmet. Ethan felt it, a weight, a presence, like the air was pressing against his chest. Finally, the figure spoke in rough, broken English. "Human. You hold key." Ethan's heart skipped. He tightened his grip on the cube unconsciously. What do you want from me?" The figure's voice was calm but heavy. "Open." Ethan glanced at Lyra. Her glowing eyes were fixed on him, silently. Urging him to do it, he swallowed hard. "I don't know how." Lyra stepped closer, placing her silver hand gently over his. Her voice was soft now. "It will know." "Your blood." Ethan stared at the cube. It was small, smooth, almost simple. But as his thumb brushed over its surface, it pulsed brighter. A low hum filled the room. The soldiers shifted uneasily. The towering figure took a step closer, his deep voice echoing. "Do it." Now, Ethan took a shaky breath. His heart pounded as he pressed his hand fully against the cube. The hum grew louder, and the smooth surface began to shift under his fingers, glowing lines spreading like veins. Suddenly, a voice filled the chamber, not Lyra's, not the alien commander's, but something older, deeper, human DNA confirmed. It said in perfect English. Ethan's breath caught. The cube split open, projecting a holographic map into the air. Stars and symbols filled the chamber, some of them looking strangely familiar. Lyra's glowing eyes widened. She whispered a single word in her language, her voice trembling. Then she looked at Ethan. "You are the one." Before Ethan could respond, the entire ship shook violently. An alarm blared. The soldiers shouted in panic. Ethan turned to Lyra. "What's happening now?" Lyra's glowing eyes met his. "Enemy of enemy has found us." A deep rumble echoed through the ship, and Ethan realized something terrifying. Whatever this cube was, it wasn't just a secret. It was a signal. Asterisk. The ship groaned under the force of the impact. The floor trembled beneath Ethan's boots, alarms screaming through the air like warning cries. Lyra grabbed his arm and held him steady as the chamber lights flickered from white to red. The towering alien warlord turned sharply to his soldiers, barking commands in his language. His deep voice cut through the chaos, but his helmeted face stayed fixed on Ethan. Even as the ship shook again, Ethan clutched the glowing cube tighter. "What is going on?" he shouted over the noise. Lyra's glowing blue eyes were wide now. "They come for this," she said, touching the cube. "Everyone wants it." Before Ethan could speak, the warlord stepped forward. His heavy armored boots made the floor vibrate with each step. He stopped only a few feet away, towering over Ethan like a shadow of metal and power. In broken English, his voice rumbled. "Human, you do not belong here." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Yeah, I figured that out." Lyra stepped between them quickly, her silver skin catching the red emergency light. She spoke in her language, her tone sharp and defensive. The warlord's helmet shifted toward her for a moment, listening. Then he spoke again in English, his voice slow and deliberate. "You are the key to end or burn all worlds." Ethan's stomach twisted. What does that even mean? "Why me?" Lyra's glowing eyes darted to him, then back to the warlord. Her voice was low now, almost like she was confessing something. "Because humans and us were one." Ethan blinked, her words sinking in slowly. "What?" Lyra turned to him, her face soft despite the alarms and shaking walls. "Long time ago, our kind and your kind. Same blood." The warlord interrupted her with a harsh growl in their language, but Lyra didn't back down. She stepped closer to Ethan, her hand gently covering the cube in his grasp. "This is proof," she whispered. "Proof of our past and choice for our future." Another violent tremor rocked the ship. A massive explosion echoed somewhere far below. The soldiers shouted as the floor shifted under their feet. Ethan stumbled, his heart pounding. "I don't understand. What does this thing do?" Lyra's glowing eyes locked onto his. It can bring peace, or it can erase everything. The warlord stepped closer, his massive frame casting a shadow over both of them. In a low, commanding tone, he said, "Open, or she dies." Ethan froze. His grip on the cube tightened instinctively. What? The warlord's armored hand reached out, wrapping around Lyra's arm with terrifying ease. Her small silver frame looked fragile in his grasp. Ethan felt a surge of anger rise inside him. Let her go. The warlord tilted his helmeted head slightly. His voice was calm, almost cold. Then, prove human worth. Open key. Ethan looked at Lyra. Her glowing eyes were steady even in the warlord's grip. She gave the smallest nod. Do it, she whispered. His hands shook as he held the cube. It pulsed harder now, the glowing veins of light spreading faster as if sensing his fear. I don't know how, Ethan said through clenched teeth. Lyra's voice was soft but firm. It knows you. Trust it. He took a deep breath and placed his palm flat against the cube. The hum began instantly, low and deep, vibrating through his bones. The chamber filled with light as the cube unfolded like a living thing. A star map exploded into the air. Thousands of points of light filled the chamber, but some were glowing brighter blue and gold connected by thin lines of energy. Ethan's breath caught as he recognized one of them. It was Earth. Lyra's hand touched his, her voice trembling. See. We are not strangers. For a second, time seemed to stop. The warlord stood frozen, staring at the glowing map. His soldiers were silent now, their weapons lowered slightly as if in reverence. But the moment didn't last. A violent blast hit the side of the ship. The floor tilted, sending Ethan and Lyra crashing against the wall. The cube stayed in his grip, its light pulsing wildly. The warlord's voice cut through the chaos, louder this time. You woke it. Now, all will come. Ethan struggled to stand, his heart racing. All who? Lyra's glowing blue eyes met his, and for the first time he saw true fear there. Everyone, she whispered. Every world, every enemy. They will all come. Another explosion ripped through the ship, and in the distance, Ethan heard the unmistakable sound of tearing metal. The warlord turned sharply to his soldiers, barking orders. His voice was harsh, commanding. But when he looked back at Ethan, his tone softened slightly, almost like a warning. Run, human. Run before they take you. A thing grabbed Lyra's hand as the chamber doors blew open in a shower of sparks. The sound of approaching ships filled the air. The cube pulsed in his grip like a living heart. He didn't know where they would go. But one thing was clear now. He wasn't just lost in an alien world anymore. He was holding its future. The sanctuary walls shook as Ethan and Lyra stumbled inside. The doors sealed behind them with a low metallic hiss, shutting out the echo of the alien warship, breaking apart in the distance. Ethan collapsed against the nearest wall, still clutching the glowing cube. His chest heaved, his mind spinning. I don't get it. Why me? Why this thing? Lyra knelt beside him, her silver skin dim under the faint blue glow of the sanctuary. She touched the cube gently, her fingers trembling. Because it knows human blood. Ethan stared at her, sweat dripping down his forehead. You keep saying that like it explains everything. Lyra's glowing blue eyes locked onto his, softer this time. Your kind left us long ago, she whispered. Humans made the first stars. Ethan froze, her words hitting him like a physical. Wait, what are you talking about? Before she could answer, the cube pulsed in his hands. A wave of light spread across the sanctuary walls. The hum filled the air again, deeper this time, almost like a heartbeat echoing through the metal. A voice spoke, not Lyra's, not any of the aliens he had heard, but clear, calm English. Reunion protocol activated. Ethan's breath caught. He glanced at Lyra, whose glowing eyes widened in shock. She whispered in her language, the words trembling, then looked at him. It listens. It chooses. The cube floated out of his hands, rising into the air. Golden lines spread across its surface, forming symbols neither of them could understand. A holographic map unfolded again, but this time it zoomed in, revealing 2 planets. Connected by a thin line of light, Ethan's chest tightened as he recognized one of them. That's Earth. Lyra's silver fingers hovered over the other glowing planet. Her voice was soft, filled with awe. And this is us. The cube's voice spoke again, calm and final. Human and Zyran bloodline confirmed. Restoration sequence unlocked. Ethan looked at Lyra, his voice barely a whisper. Zyran, that's what you are? She nodded slowly, her glowing eyes locked on the light connecting the 2 worlds. Yes, and you are our beginning. Ethan's hands curled into fists. I'm not a beginning. I'm just a soldier who got shot down. Lyra's voice turned firm despite her exhaustion. No, you are the one who can fix what was broken. A sudden tremor rippled through the sanctuary. Dust fell from the ceiling as a distant roar filled the air. Ethan turned sharply. They found us already? Lyra's glowing eyes flicked toward the sealed doors. Everyone wants the key, she whispered. Ethan grabbed the cube as it lowered back into his hands. Its light was brighter now, pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. He looked at Lyra, his voice tight. What happens if I finish this? What does this thing do? Lyra hesitated, her lips parted, but no words came for a long moment. Finally she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. It makes us one, but it costs. Ethan frowned. Costs what? Lyra's glowing blue eyes filled with something. He couldn't read fear, sadness, maybe both. Everything, before he could ask more. The sanctuary doors shook violently. A booming voice echoed through the walls. The warlord. Human. You cannot run forever. Ethan's stomach twisted. He stood quickly, gripping the cube tighter. We have to leave. Lyra shook her head. No. No more running. She stepped closer to him, her silver fingers brushing over his hand holding. The cube. You must choose. The doors groaned as they were forced open. Blinding white light spilled into the sanctuary. The warlord stepped inside with his soldiers. His deep voice filled the room. Human. Open it fully, or die with it. Ethan's heart pounded. His mind screamed to run, to fight, to do anything but stand there. But the cube pulsed again, and a strange calm spread through his chest. He looked at Lyra. Her glowing blue eyes were steady now, as if she already knew what he would do. Promise, she whispered. Promise you finish what we start. Ethan swallowed hard. I promise. He pressed his hands fully against the cube. The hum roared to life so loud the walls vibrated. Light exploded through the sanctuary, washing over everyone inside. The voice spoke one last time. Human code accepted. Unity sequence initiated. The ground split with a beam of golden energy shooting into the sky. The line between the 2 planets on the map burned brighter until it became one single point. Ethan felt a warmth flood through his veins. Something ancient, something alive. Lyra gasped, her silver skin glowing like starlight as the same warmth passed through her. The warlord fell to his knees, his armored hands clutching the ground. His voice was no longer harsh, only quiet. It is true. Ethan stared at the light spreading through the sanctuary, his voice shaking. What did I just do? Lyra looked at him with tears in her glowing blue eyes and whispered, You woke the blood of 2 worlds. Asterisk, the golden beam of light faded slowly, leaving the sanctuary in an eerie calm. The walls no longer glowed blue but shimmered faintly with a soft white radiance, as if the entire room was breathing. Ethan stumbled back against the wall, still gripping the cube. His hands shook, his chest heaving. What just happened? Lyra stood in the center of the chamber, her silver skin glowing faintly. Her blue eyes were wide, tears streaming down her cheeks. She whispered a single word in her language, then turned to him. It began. Ethan looked at her, confused and scared. What began? Before she could answer, a door on the far side of the sanctuary opened slowly, not with the hiss of technology, but with the low creak of something ancient. Warm light spilled through and soft footsteps echoed. Ethan raised the cube instinctively, his body tense. Figures stepped into the room, Zyron, but not like the soldiers. Their armor was gone, replaced by flowing robes with markings that glowed faintly. Their silver skin and glowing eyes looked older, wiser. One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward and spoke softly in Lyra's language. Lyra bowed her head slightly. Her voice trembled as she answered. Ethan frowned. "What are they saying?" Lyra turned to him, her voice soft. "They are the keepers?" Ethan blinked. "Keepers? Of what?" Her glowing eyes met his. "Of the truth." The tall keeper stepped closer to Ethan. His eyes were a deep gold instead of blue, and when he spoke, his voice carried a strange weight, even though the words were in broken English. "Human. Welcome home." Ethan's breath caught. "Home?" He echoed. "This isn't my home." The keeper shook his head slowly. "It was. Long ago." Lyra stepped between them, her voice gentle. "They remember now. The cube woke their minds." Ethan held the cube tightly, looking down at its pulsing light. "This thing, it connects us?" Lyra nodded, her silver hair flowing gently as if moved by unseen air. "Yes. It shows we are one." Ethan sat down slowly, his back against the wall. His head spun. Everything he thought he knew about humanity, about himself, felt like it was shattering. If that's true, then why are we at war? Lyra's glowing eyes dimmed with sadness. Because they forgot. The keeper knelt in front of Ethan, his voice calm, deep. "Memory lost. Fear grows." He placed a silver hand gently on the cube. "But now you bring it back." A deep rumble shook the sanctuary floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. The golden light flickered slightly. Ethan looked up sharply. "What now?" One of the other keepers spoke quickly in their language. Lyra's face went pale. She turned to Ethan. "They are coming." "All of them." Ethan's stomach dropped. "You mean the soldiers?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "No. Everyone, every world, every side." The signal called them. Ethan felt the weight of the cube in his hands, suddenly heavier than before. "You mean this thing just painted a target on us?" Lyra crouched next to him, her voice soft but firm. "It's not a target. It's a beacon." Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, great. That makes me feel so much better." Lyra touched his arm gently. Her glowing blue eyes were calm despite the shaking walls. "You are not alone now." The keepers moved to the center of the sanctuary, pressing their hands against the floor. Symbols lit up under their fingers, and the entire room shifted. The walls melted away, revealing a massive underground chamber filled with glowing roots of light stretching into the distance. Ethan stared in awe. "What is this?" Lyra smiled faintly. "The last sanctuary. Heart of our worlds." The cube pulsed brighter in his hands, resonating with the glowing roots. Hum filled the chamber, deep and alive. Ethan felt it in his bones. The keeper looked at him, his golden eyes steady. "Human. Choices now." Ethan swallowed hard. "Choice?" Lyra's voice was soft. "Yes. You finish it, or you let it all die." The floor trembled again, and the faint sound of engines roared above. The signal had worked. The others were arriving. Ethan looked at Lyra, his voice quiet. "And what happens if I finish it?" Her glowing eyes met his, a mix of hope and sadness. "Then we become one. Forever." He stared at the cube, its light warm in his hands. His heart pounded. His mind screamed at him to run, to hide, to find a way out. But deep down, a small voice whispered the truth. There was no way out anymore. He looked at Lyra, her silver skin glowing softly under the sanctuary light. "If I do this, will you be with me?" Lyra smiled gently, her fingers brushing over his. "Always." Ethan took a deep breath. and stepped toward the center of the glowing roots. The keepers bowed their heads as the cube lifted itself from his hands, floating into the air. The hum became a roar. The sanctuary walls pulsed with light. And Ethan realized this wasn't just a room anymore. This was the heart of two worlds waiting to be as one. The sanctuary exploded with light, not harsh or burning, but warm, alive. Ethan shielded his eyes for a moment before lowering his hands. His breath caught in his throat. The roots of light stretched beyond the walls now, breaking through metal and stone as if the planet itself was waking up. The hum was no longer a sound but a feeling, running through his chest, his bones, his blood. Lyra stood beside him, her silver skin glowing brighter than ever. Her blue eyes shimmered with tears. She whispered softly, almost in awe, "It begins." The cube floated higher, its golden lines spinning faster, projecting the map again. The two planets, Earth and Zyryn, glowed like twin suns. The thin line between them pulsed and then expanded into a wide beam, connecting them fully. Ethan felt something in his chest shift, like a memory that wasn't his, a voice that wasn't his own. He heard laughter, saw flashes of cities that weren't human and yet somehow familiar. He stumbled slightly, clutching his head. Lyra caught him. Her voice soft, "It's okay. They come back." Ethan looked at her, breathing heavily. "What's coming back?" Lyra smiled faintly through her tears. "Us." A deep tremor rolled through the sanctuary. Not violent but powerful. Above, the sky itself seemed to split. Light shot upward, and for a second, Ethan swore he saw Earth's blue oceans reflecting back at him in the beam. The keepers knelt, their glowing hands pressed to the floor. Their voices joined in a low chant, the words ancient and heavy. Ethan turned to Lyra. "What happens now?" Her glowing blue eyes met his. "Now we remember." Suddenly the doors to the sanctuary burst open. Soldiers from both sides poured in, weapons raised. But the moment they stepped into the light, their armor dimmed, their movements slowed. Some dropped their weapons entirely as the hum resonated through them. One of the enemy soldiers stumbled forward, his glowing eyes wide. "Know this," he whispered in their language before falling to his knees. Ethan's heart pounded as he realized what was happening. The light wasn't a weapon, it was a memory, a truth too strong to fight. The warlord entered last, his massive, armored frame stepping into the heart of the sanctuary. His helmet slowly retracted, revealing a face that looked old or worn. His golden eyes locked on Ethan. "You did it," he said. His voice no longer harsh but quiet, almost reverent. Ethan swallowed. "I don't even know what I did." The warlord stepped closer, staring at the beam connecting the worlds. "You gave it back." "What was stolen?" Lyra's silver hand gently took Ethan's. Her voice was soft. "We were one. And now we are again." The cube lowered slowly, resting in Ethan's hands once more. Its glow dimmed to a soft golden pulse. The hum faded into silence, leaving only the sound of quiet breathing in the vast chamber. Ethan looked at the warlord, at the soldiers, at Lyra. "So, what now?" The keeper stepped forward, his golden eyes calm. "Now we heal." Outside, the sky above the sanctuary split open. The beam shot upward into the stars, and for a brief second, Earth's blue glow reflected across Zyryn's silver skies. Ethan felt the warmth still in his veins. He looked at Lyra, her silver skin glowing faintly under the fading light. "Guess I'm not just a soldier anymore," he said with a small, tired smile. Lyra smiled back, her blue eyes soft. "No, you are Bridge." The warlord bowed his head slightly. "Something Ethan never thought he'd see." His deep voice echoed softly. "Welcome home, human." Ethan exhaled slowly, holding the cube close to his chest. He didn't know what would come next, but for the first time since waking up in that strange room, he didn't feel lost anymore. Lyra leaned against him gently, her voice barely a whisper. "Two worlds, one blood." Ethan closed his eyes, hearing the faint echo of a voice that wasn't Lyra's or his own. a voice old and warm, whispering softly through the golden light. "Welcome home.